Welcome to the BLTnT podcast. I'm your host, Matt Loria, serving up real stories of business, life, technology, and transformations. You'll hear from interesting people about big changes from career shifts to life-altering decisions and the innovations that help make it all happen. It's about sharing those light bulb moments, pivot points, challenges overcome, and the journeys that inspire us to think differently. If you're on the lookout for insights to propel you forward, stories that resonate, or just a bit of inspiration on your next BLTnT move, you're in the right place. Let's dig in. Hi, I'm Matt Loria with the BLTnT podcast, and this episode we are featuring Dana Schmitt, the president of the United Shore Professional Baseball League. I always say it by its acronym, so I had to actually glance at my notes.
That's right.
Here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt.
Thanks for being here. So is this, is United Shore a sponsor? Is that how they got
That's correct.
Their name there?
Right.
Okay.
So, and it started as United Shore at that time and changed to UWM. So now we are USPBL,
Okay.
powered by UWM.
Got it. Okay. So if we want the Oxium name on there, we have to really pony up.
We would have to talk about that after.
Just put a little AU at the end of that. We'll be okay. So Dana, recently you had changed roles or positions from the COO of the organization to the president. How long ago was that?
About 2 years ago.
2 years, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what drove that change? What sort of responsibilities changed for you in that transition?
Not a lot. It basically was, I was already doing the functions of my current job, the president, but just something that Andy, our CEO and owner, wanted to do for me.
Great.
Just to, I guess, make it clear that I was his right-hand person. But it didn't really change what I'm doing. And I'm also do all the legal work for the league, and I don't have the general counsel title that was my choice to not have that title. Sometimes that scares people, and they aren't as open with you if they think you're the lawyer.
Sure.
And while that is part of what I do, it's not my main focus of what I do, even though some days it's all I do. So, but yeah, it was just something that he felt like he wanted to give me that title. So really more from the outside world. People knew that he trusted me, I guess, but it didn't really change my responsibilities or sort of how I thought about myself and my role with the organization.
Sure. I think those of us who have known you for a while have always thought you were the president, so it was a natural thing for all of us from the outside looking in, so that's great. We really had some nice time to chat before we got started here on the show, and I got to learn a lot of the different layers of the onion that is Dana and Andy and the league, and really your whole venture that you guys run. So can we talk about some of that and share some of this timeline? We'll start with the business, because we're the BLTnT, so business, life, technology, and transformation. So we'll start with business here.
Yeah.
You joined their firm, and Andy found you. Convinced you.
Yeah, so basically,
in 99?
I met Andy in 97.
Okay.
And he was planning at that point to leave. He was with the Pistons and Palace Sports and Entertainment, and kind of had gone as far as he could go there. The next seat was Tom Wilson's, and Tom was still a young guy, and Andy was 36, but he felt like he had accomplished what he could accomplish there. So he left of his own accord to start his own business, and he started our parent company for the baseball league called General Sports and Entertainment. And I met Andy. At that time, I was practicing law in Chicago and had grown up here, but moved there after law school, and went to a certain point of my career at 2.5 years into practicing law, decided and knew I wanted to work in sports, decided it was time to start looking to make that move. I just knew the longer you stay working at a law firm, you're going to get the golden handcuffs. It's going to be really hard to leave and make a change like that in your career, and hard to break into sports. Everybody wants to work in sports. As Andy likes to say, we work in the toy department, so I happened to meet him while I was looking in other avenues to get into sports, and met him through a family connection. And he happened to be leaving at that time to start General Sports and Entertainment. So we ended up talking for 2 years. He started with another guy who was his general counsel, and that guy ended up moving to Indianapolis to focus on motorsports after a couple of years. And at that point, Andy and I agreed that I would move back to Michigan. And I started off as his general counsel. And so at this point, I'm a lawyer for 4 years, certainly not in a position where I should be anybody's general counsel, but he didn't know that. And he didn't really know what I was going to do for him. But I knew I could write. I knew I could help him. And so I ended up having to do a lot of legal things that I hadn't done before, but I just relied on my relationships, people that had mentored me along the way in the law, and would call them for advice, or do you have a template of something I can use for this or that? And that's how I started. And when I came to General Sports and Entertainment, the first thing Andy had done was he bought a minor league baseball team in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And at the time, it was called the Fort Wayne Wizards. It's now the Tin Caps. And that team was the Class A affiliate for the San Diego Padres. So we spent a lot of time in Fort Wayne. Basically, all the summers when we had homestands, we were in Fort Wayne. We had a group of investors that had been put together to help buy the team. And then we were the operating, Andy was the managing member. We were the operating entity for the team. And of course, we had people in Fort Wayne that were doing day-to-day operations. And then in addition to that, Andy had a consulting arm. He was representing companies like Pepsi and Comerica and Blue Cross and handling their sports marketing and sports sponsorship deals in Metro Detroit and the regionally for Pepsi. We also had an executive search arm that we were placing executives in the sports industry. And then at a certain point, Andy had wanted to do meetings and events and sports-related events, and nobody could sort of get it off the ground. So he came to me, and it didn't make sense for the lawyer to do that, but I said, okay, I'll do it. And we ended up starting an event business, and that became pretty successful. We did a lot of big meetings and corporate events, and started doing things all over the country for big conferences and employee incentive programs and sales meetings. And then one day a guy came to him and said he had an idea for Andy to, because Andy was always very entrepreneurial, to do a synthetic.
I can tell from all of these different.
To do a synthetic turf
zags.
business. And so we started that, not realizing we actually were going to be in a construction business. And so, one of those things that you learn as you go is that the majority of that was installing the fields, not just selling the turf.
Right.
And after that was growing, and we ended up getting the licensing rights to the AstroTurf brand. So that the AstroTurf brand and all of the intellectual property was actually AstroTurf had gone through a bankruptcy, and a big manufacturer of carpet and synthetic turf purchased those assets out of bankruptcy. And then we ended up partnering with them to basically take what we were manufacturing, melded it together with what the intellectual property for AstroTurf was, and started using the AstroTurf brand to market across the country. So that partnership evolved and developed, and eventually the company grew to a certain point where we were doing fields all across the country. And with that, you need a lot of capital because you have to cash flow large, basically construction projects.
And then those are not paid for, 180 days?
Yeah,
or longer,
and well, you're dealing with municipal, like schools, right? So public schools and universities. And then 2008 came, and with the financial crisis and the bank basically, not just our bank, a lot of people's banks.
Yeah. Calling notes and
right.
whatnot.
We're like, our credit line was coming up, and basically we weren't going to be able to renew that credit line, and because the bank didn't have the capital to do it, basically.
Wow.
And so we started looking around for another source, and that took a while, and we were able to keep piecing it along and cash flowing it along. But in the meantime, the manufacturing partner came forward and said, we'd kind of like to continue to grow this. And so we ended up selling the business to the manufacturing partner. And really, it worked out the best for all of us. That was growing so much, and it was taking a lot of my time because there was a lot of legal work involved with that.
Is that still continuing on this day?
The parent company, it's new names and all of that, the company that bought it. So obviously
the product still stands?
Products are out there, yes. But it's evolved over the last, that was 2009 when we made that, when we sold that business. In the meantime, we were continuing, we had started at a certain point because of how much we loved the magic of minor league baseball in Fort Wayne. And that was really the thing that we saw when we had the team in Fort Wayne, is just, it was magic. It was the greatest family entertainment experience. And we wanted to do something closer to home. So originally we were trying to see if we could move that team, the team in Fort Wayne, here to the Metro Detroit area or someplace close. And there's just rules for that. When you have an affiliated team, the major league team, each major league team has a radius from their home plate that, they have the say-so on whether an affiliated team can be in that market. And so that wasn't working out to bring that team here. So we ended up selling the team in Fort Wayne and working on doing something in what is called independent baseball, which would allow us to do something in Metro Detroit where there's never been minor league baseball before.
Right.
And a lot of people weren't sure if that was going to work out, and we were pretty confident that it would, based on what we knew about the business that we had in Fort Wayne. So we worked on that for a long time, but in the meantime, we did a bunch of other things. We had a something called the Sports Executive Leadership Conference, which was a conference that we put on at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs every July. We brought all the top executives in sports together for a thought leaders conference, and huge name speakers that would come in, and it was a great, obviously, networking event for everybody in sports to get to know each other. And it was like sort of the one time of the year where it was relatively quiet for most of the sports. It wasn't. It was right before the NFL starts their training camps.
So you were able to get the crowd that you needed. And
so we were able to do that. And of course, in Colorado Springs, we had the USOC for the Olympic, United States Olympic Committee out there. So we had a base of some folks that would be there in a great venue. So that was a lot of fun. And we met so many people. It was great. And then we continued to try to get a stadium built, and thought we had something.
The stadium here, or
stadium here for a minor league baseball team.
And that I couldn't believe how long.
And so it took
was
us
in the works for
about 15 years. Andy likes to say it was a 15-year overnight success story. So from the time we first thought about it, there was a summer where Andy and myself and his wife Chris and a woman that we had sent to Fort Wayne to help us run the team at one point, who is now I think she's the president or the executive director of the U.S. Figure skating. But she was for many years with the Cavs, with the Cleveland Cavaliers, as their chief marketing officer. But at that time was in Fort Wayne. Well, we took a road trip all around the Midwest, and we visited all of these ballparks just to take notes on everything we liked.
And were these minor league parks, or were these actually independent parks? Has anybody ever done the independent
Yes.
model as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, some were affiliated and some were independent, and so we did, a road trip for several days and visited all these ballparks and took pictures of everything we liked and took notes of the things we did and didn't like. And then we almost had something done at one point. Then, it didn't go through. And then publicly, and that one was confidential. And publicly, we went to the city of Troy after that, and we almost got that done. And we had the votes, and then it flip-flopped in the last vote. So it was frustrating because we knew it was going to be a great success.
Sure.
And so after that, we kind of said, we're going to, maybe we're going to focus on a major league team. So then we started chasing a major league team, and we pursued an NHL team, almost got that done, didn't get it done. Then we went to the UK, and we ended up buying a Premier League English football club. That year that we bought it, the club was in the Premier League, was relegated, but we knew that was going to happen when we purchased it, so we paid a price that was, but 33,000 seat stadium and the only game in town, a team from the 1800s that is, Derby, England. It is the thing that everybody loves, right?
Wow.
So Andy was the chairman of that. We were playing our first, I don't think it was our first match, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we closed on the club, we went over there and we played Manchester United at home, and just really, really cool, wonderful experiences. And we learned a lot, about English football that we didn't know, a lot about operating sports. And then in the meantime, the deal got done with the city of Utica to build the stadium in Utica. So these things were all happening simultaneously. And so once we got the deal done to build the stadium in Utica, I sort of transitioned into, I'm just going to run the baseball league, because one of the things that I knew is that in and of itself was going to be a full-time job.
Sure.
And so we came to an agreement with the city of Utica in 2014 on the site, and broke ground in June of 2015. And opening day was May 30th, 2016.
Wow.
And we started with 3 teams. Originally, when we first were going to build the stadium here, we were going to have one team in a different independent league. And then over time, it evolved into, why don't we have our own league? Because if we're going to spend our own money to build a ballpark, we don't want to have road trips. We don't have weekends in the summer when we don't have home games. And when
you just have your facility sitting empty and
correct,
underutilized.
And so, when we had the team in Fort Wayne, we were in the Midwest League, which was the Lugnuts and West Michigan Whitecaps. And so we were playing those teams, and you'd get 5, maybe 6 weekends that were home in the summer. And everyone's fighting it out over the schedule every year to try to get certain weekends in the summer. So we decided that we were going to have, basically create a bubble where we had multiple teams playing out of the same ballpark, and where it would be advantageous to do that from a development standpoint. We knew that there were a lot of great players who were not getting drafted anymore. Over time, the rounds of the draft had shrunk. And so players that used to get drafted weren't getting drafted anymore. So we were very confident that that we would be able to find high quality players.
Sure.
And the idea was to create a place where guys that weren't getting drafted anymore could go to continue to develop and bring scouts in. And we knew the quality of the baseball would be good. We knew the entertainment experience would be great. But what we didn't know is how many players would actually get signed out of our league. We were thinking, we would be happy with 1 or 2. And
what is that number? That number is somewhere in the 40s now? Is that correct?
Sitting here today, since 2016, and of course we went through a COVID summer where nobody got signed because the affiliated teams weren't even playing. To 52 players have been signed out of our league, and a
couple of them have actually gone to the majors, correct?
5 5 have made it all the way to playing in the majors. So it's pretty cool. And I think more than anything, the first couple people that were signed, our first year, we had 15 players get signed. So the whole, a lot of people thought these were going to be weekend warriors and didn't understand minor league baseball very well because we didn't have it here. And so that first year, before we had the ballpark built, our sales team, it was a 15-minute lead into trying to sell anything, trying to explain what this was.
Explain what your product is.
Right. And so after that first year, the sales process became a lot easier for our sales team because the legitimacy was created that, yes, this is an independent league. Like there are numerous other independent leagues, not exactly like ours, not a bubble where there's 4 teams playing. But, this is where scouts are going to find those players that, quite frankly, they wanted to draft, but they couldn't draft because they only had so many draft picks, right?
Sure.
So a lot of times scouts are still following those players. And so we put together the first year 3 teams. And what we had to do that was different than Fort Wayne is, when you own an affiliated minor league team, you don't have to do the baseball part because the major league team handles all of the baseball part. All the players come from the major league team, the coaches. You feed the players, you get their buses scheduled for their road trips, things like that, but you don't do the baseball part. You don't
manage the ballpark.
Right. You do sales and marketing, basically. And so what happened was now we have to put together a baseball operations department. It's because now we've got to put together coaching staff and find players and recruit players and sign players and put together a player contract and have trainers and team doctors and all sorts of things that we never had to do before.
And, of course, the dog. You had to get the dog.
Well, that dog came later.
Okay, but it was part of the plan.
It evolved, right? So basically, we start with 3 teams. We come out of the gate. We have a great 2016 season. And then, based on fan feedback, we add a 4th team in 2017. And our plan always has been to add another ballpark or ballparks. And then we would add more teams and possibly move one of these teams to another ballpark, depending on the location.
Would the teams would then play, your bubble would just get a little bit bigger then, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we would try to limit the travel as much as possible, but they would still be playing each other. Sure. And also, depending on the location, because we started off just primarily thinking about sites in Michigan, but now we're looking at sites all over the country.
Okay.
So, I don't know. And we've
the logistics will play into that, however.
Right. We've had some situations where we could have done something, and the location has to be right for us, too. There are places around the country where they're building ballparks, and they're looking for teams to come. And there have been scenarios where we're just not sure that that's the right fit, that there's going to be enough population there, businesses there, to support our model, right? So, so we're still actively working on that, and it is a huge goal of ours to get the next ballpark done, and I think we'll do it because it took us 15 years to do the last one.
Based on the accomplishments you've had thus far, I think if you're setting your mind to it, you're going to do it. I don't think there's any issue there.
Yeah,
Am I correct? You two are a force to be reckoned with. When you want to have something done, you're going to get it done.
So we're working hard on it. So that's a big goal, and then yes, the Bat Dog came later. There was a guy that used to travel he still travels minor league baseball with his act called Jake the Diamond Dog, and we would have him in Fort Wayne every year, and he brings his dog, and he's had several Jakes throughout the 30 years he's been doing that, and he came the first year with his act to the ballpark in Utica, to Jimmy John's Field, and Andy asked him, what do you think about helping us find our own dog? You train it, we'll pay you to find it, train it, and then we'll have our own dog. And so he agrees to do that. Meanwhile, I'm saying to Andy, okay, who's the dog going to live with? We can't just get a dog, it has to live with somebody. So we are having this ongoing discussion back and forth about this, and eventually the dog lived with me. So in 2018, right before the start of the season, we got JJ. The fans named him. for Jimmy John's, of course. And he has been picking up the bats and taking water to the umpire since 2018. And so he's 7 now, and he knows his routine very well now. But I will tell you, the first season, there were many games where he got the bat, but he didn't bring it back. He ran around the field with it, and the fans still, to this day, they loved it when JJ was being a little naughty and not bringing the bat back. But he's
you're officially his mom, correct?
I'm his mom. Yep. Okay. He's the star of the show at the games, and I know you've been there. You've seen him, so he's definitely.
I've seen him not just in doing his thing on the field, but also work in the office as well.
Yes, he goes to work every day. So I actually just had to take him home right when I came here because I guess I could have brought him.
You totally could have brought him. But, so let me back up a little bit. Some questions that are popping up for me are, when Andy started this whole thing and then got you to come on board, there was a vision there, right? But that vision the vision was what? Was it the vision, I want to be in sports, I don't know what it is? And maybe you can answer that question. And then secondly, how have you stayed on track there to kind of be there on every one of these endeavors? How has that suited you to go, okay, this open-ended vision, but there's some consistency to it. There's obviously some consistency. This is not willy-nilly sort of behavior that we're seeing here.
Well, I think one of the things that first I thought I wanted to work in sports, but what I really kind of fell in love with was the entrepreneurial nature of what we're doing. We've done a lot of things that haven't worked either. I mean, you do things and sometimes it doesn't work, or sometimes you realize you're in a construction business and you didn't really want to be in that, right? And so, but you got to keep going, and then eventually something worked out where we were able to transition out of that and go back to what we were really good at and what we wanted to be doing, which was more on the team sport side. Andy also still has an agency separate from the league that he kind of took a lot of what we were doing under the general sports and entertainment umbrella that I was involved with him originally, and that's being run through something called General Sports Worldwide now, because the league takes up all of my time. Sure. And I basically, that was what I wanted, was I need to focus on this league because I thought it was the best idea he ever had, that we ever had. And I knew it would be successful, and it has been. So, but, the entrepreneurial aspect of what we did was the fun part, is creating something from nothing and watching it become something. 4 teams created out of thin air that now you see people walking around wearing the jerseys and the hats. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you've created something. Now, do you enjoy this operator or EOS, right, would call this the integrator role versus the visionary role at this point, where you're running this organization? Are you missing the entrepreneurial pieces of it, or are you still able to exercise enough of that internally?
I don't miss it because we have 70 games and we have 70 different promotions. So we basically are creating a mini, little business in each one. And we're going to be building a new headquarters building. Right now we're working, we should be breaking ground later this year. And we're going to have a couple new businesses that are part of that. Great. A couple of retail.
Can you share where that location is?
Right across the river from the ballpark in Utica.
Oh, great.
So, yeah. So it'll be, right now we're in Rochester and we drive back and forth to the ballpark. We don't have offices there. So we'll be right there next to the ballpark. We'll have a corporate meeting and event space. So that's something where, kind of going back to what we used to do, we'll be able to have meeting space for people to do corporate meetings, as well as some retail space. We're going to have a restaurant called JJ's Doghouse, which is going to be kind of like La Puma's in Rochester. But, we've got a really cool logo that's JJ's face. And we're going to have a retail store there that we don't have right now, as well as our offices. And we're going to have some office space for a third-party tenant as well. And so that's something new. Plus, we're trying to get this next ballpark built. So those things are always going on. So I don't really miss the entrepreneurial aspect. I think the biggest thing that goes through your mind is a couple times we've been close to getting the next ballpark done is, okay, when that happens, how do you then get your organization, grow your organization to where I can oversee all of
This
it.
episode of the BLTnT podcast is sponsored by Auxium, business IT and cybersecurity designed to outsmart chaos. Empowered by Juniper Networks. Automate your network with Juniper Networks and the Mist AI platform, the world's first AI-driven wired and wireless network. Have you had any business coaching or peer-to-peer sort of influence on your staying with all of this and staying on top of it? I mean, I know you mentioned that you've conversed back with your lawyer friends for certain advice, but where do you seek out advice from, either peers or coaching or anything like that, or do you?
No, not really. Just Andy and I talking to each other, and talking to and other members of our team that we have with us. We have a consultant that is now working with us to get the next ballpark built, but it's still ultimately going to be our decision about, even if we have a scenario that where they want us, like we've had in certain situations, is it good for us? Is it the right location for us that we can be successful? We don't want to go into something that we can't be successful.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, you get people's opinions that are experts in the specific industries, like if you're not an expert in it. And so, yes, there are people here and there. There are real estate people that we'll work with that are experts, or outside counsel on certain legal aspects, things like that. The baseball piece of it and the sports piece of it, probably we are the experts, right? So I feel like, from that perspective, not that we know everything, because we've certainly made probably every mistake 10 times over, right?
Sure. That's what makes you so qualified.
But hopefully we've learned from them,
Yeah.
right?
Let me ask you this: the culture around the organization. So obviously you have a variety of different staff, right? You have a restaurant and bar, food facilities. You have the baseball operations. You have the people working and selling concessions. I mean, all of these different roles, plus your own office staff. What would you say the overarching culture of the organization is?
So, we have about 25 to 30 year-round full-time front office staff.
Okay.
And somebody said this to me from our staff one time, that, you know how many unicorns you have here. And we do. It's people that love sports and wanted to work in sports. And I think what you find is they're all super hard workers, and it's not, I don't have to push them to work hard. They just get it. They just, they understand what it's like to work in sports. This is what they've always wanted to do. And they're used to working long hours and working hard and just working until the job gets done. So it's very rare, especially with the team I have right now, that I am having to chase anybody or follow up with anybody to say, why didn't this get done or that get done? I mean, if there are times where that doesn't happen, it's mainly just because there's so much work, but not because somebody wasn't working hard, right?
Sure. So would you say you have the eight players of the unicorn team? Would that be?
I would say so. I mean, and believe me, there's been plenty of people where it didn't work out because, and it wasn't that they weren't great people or they weren't smart or talented, but it's not for everybody, right?
It's very high pressure. I mean, you're putting on a show every time you've got the ballpark open. You're putting on a show that needs to run pretty much flawlessly. Right. And,
and it's long hours.
And a lot of moving parts.
And we, our staff, we're in the office at 9 a.m. We're on conference calls at 9. And then on game days, we're working until 11. And then wake up the next day and do that again. And wake up the next day and do that again. And wake up the next day and do that again. Right. So so part of the thing with our schedule, not having those road trips, is we don't have that break. And so we did realize that after we got started, is that this is a bit harder than the structure that we had when we had the team in Fort Wayne, because you might have a 10-game homestand, but then have 10 days where the team's on the road.
Wow.
And we don't. We have
Back to back.
Thursday to Sunday, Thursday to Sunday, Thursday to Sunday. So, and when our staff usually is off on Mondays because we work all weekend, but nobody's really off, because on Mondays when everybody else that still wants to come is calling us, right? So the first year we tried to have everybody, we tried to not have everybody come in until like 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, and it was, nobody could catch up. You couldn't catch up to the sales.
Really?
Because you had like 50 voicemails that were piled up that you didn't get to.
Is this because people are driving by and they see the activity and then that makes them want to call, or what?
No, it's just Monday for them is the start of the week. They're back to work, and so it's
That's
time
when they start
to
making
follow
their
up.
calls. Okay.
Right? Yeah. So it's one of those things where once our season starts, and really we start getting really, really, really busy in April, because we're in addition to those 25 to 30 full-time year-round, now we're bringing in like around 400 seasonal staff. So 4 teams of players and coaches, and all your concession staff, your grounds crew, your warehouse, your food and beverage staff that we perform all of this in-house, your parking lot attendants, your ushers, your ticket takers, all of that, your box office staff. So you're hiring all those people, and we get maybe, I would say 50% from year to year that will be returners. But then you're always going to have people that either they get older and they can't do it anymore. It's a lot even for like our ushers in the summer.
Sure.
Or they're high school kids and now they've aged out because they're off to college and they're not coming back in the summers, or they were college students and now they graduated. So you get that kind of turnover from year to year, but you'll always have like a group from the prior year that is coming back. And of course, we have some people that have been with us since we opened in 2016.
That's great.
And we train that staff on, we follow Disney's training for our guest service training. And that's a huge part of what we do, is we want to have the cleanest, safest, friendliest ballpark in America. And we say no napkin on the ground for more than 5 seconds. And
I remember hearing that from we had seen you recently at a women empowered event that you were speaking on, and you had said that no napkin on the ground for more than 5 seconds, and lead by example, meaning you pick up those napkins all the time.
Absolutely. I'm picking up everything around the ballpark. Right. So, Andy and I see everything, and you just, sometimes when you're there, and especially with young staff, you don't notice everything around you, but I think he and I are looking at it from how is the public going to see this, and we see everything.
Of course.
And so we do our very best. It's outside, so that's another part of this, is that no matter what we do, it's going to be dirty again the next day, right? Because it's almost all outside. And so the dirt from the field and, everything has to be wiped before every game and every event, just because it's going to get dusty, and it's, that's just what it is. So you just get used to the fact that everything here has to be cleaned every single time we open up this ballpark. So, but it's, I think it's a fun place to work for people, though, and it's a happy place.
It seems like it, from outside looking in, I've been a guest on a kind of a variety of levels, right? From just going to games, but also we've hosted some events with you, with one of the schools that I'm affiliated with, and you've even converted the baseball field into a football field for some of those. So it's very apparent the work that you guys are putting into this. Yeah,
it's we're going to have a concert, but it's one of these fever concerts in the fall. I think it's going to be with they play the strings with all the candles around it, and that'll be the first time we do something like that. So that's cool. We're always trying to do new things. Some things are more difficult than others to make happen. The football game was really fun. We did a football game that you're talking about last fall. We're doing it again this fall. We had done one other, our very first year. Oakland's club football team played Ohio State's club football team on the same day as our craft beer festival. And so we knew we could do it, but we hadn't done one since then.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's fun to do new things. And I think our team is always up for it, of trying to do something unique and cool. And I think that live event experience is something that everybody on our team enjoys. The other thing I really like is we get to work from our seasonal staff perspective. We have 15-year-olds up to people in their 80s. And it's a mixture. And people today, I think, thinks these groups don't mix. But I see them mix all the time. And I think both sides can learn something from each other.
For sure.
And we have a lot of kids, this is their first job, and we have to teach them how to work, how to show up for work on time, and take responsibility for it, because we're talking to you, not your mom and dad. And, so I think from that perspective, it's really fun to watch so many of these kids are such good kids, and they grow their confidence level from the time they start to once we're a month into the season, like right now, the people that started, they're just different humans.
By the end of the season.
Even a month in. But
Wow.
yes, for sure by the end of the season. And they usually want to come back because it's someplace that they feel good. They feel good about themselves.
Do you have any stories of someone starting off as an intern and staying on and being part of your permanent staff, or starting off in, one role and then kind of moving around and climbing around the organization?
Lots.
Really?
I would say at least half of our staff interned with us. Wow. That's the first place we'll go to hire people, is from people that interned with us when we're looking to hire new staff, who were the interns that were good in the past. My former assistant, both of my assistants, my one that I had one before the current one, were interns for me in the past. Most of our sales team all had done internships with us. One of the guys that heads up our corporate marketing or corporate partnerships with our sponsors. So we have a lot of people that have interned for us, some of our operations staff. So that's the best place to find people, because they've been through a summer of baseball. And I tell our interns, we have about 100 interns every summer, and every department is in charge of their own interns. But I'll have a meeting with all of them at the start of the season, even the ones that aren't assigned to me. And I'll tell them, you're going to find out whether you want to work in sports or live events or entertainment, because it's not for everybody. It's different hours, and sometimes you have to work holidays, you have to work weekends. In baseball, you give up your summer. And some of you are going to say, this isn't for me, and that's okay. That's part of the learning process here, is to learn whether this is something that you really enjoy doing and want to have for a career or not. And then some of you are going to say, yep, this is exactly what I want to do. And we can tell who those people are. And it's a grind. But we can see the people that stay with positive energy throughout the summer, even when they're tired. And those are the people that we go back to when we're trying to hire people to join our staff.
Yeah, it's interesting how everyone's wired differently and different things energize them. Obviously, we can tell from you, and you're completely lit up whenever you're talking about what you do. So you may be tired, but you are always energized by what it is that you're doing, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even if you are tired, once you get over there and there's a game going on, you're not.
Nope.
You're not during that time, right? So there are so many fun parts about what we do, and I get to make people happy for a living. And so that's why I say, who gets to do that? Not a lot of people, right? So even on your worst day, where you're tired or maybe things didn't go right, you're going to have probably 10 things that were really fun and cool that happened during your day that are exciting, or you made somebody happy, or we get thousands of unsolicited emails from people about what a great time they had and the memories they made with their families. And so that makes it all worth it, and it's why we do what we do.
That's great.
Not to mention when the players get signed and how exciting that is.
That's got to feel great.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we follow all of those guys when they're, as they're making their progress through the affiliated system, and when they get their call-ups, we'll put it on the big board, or we'll put it on the TVs in the ballpark so everybody can watch their first inning in the majors, and nobody's more excited than us.
Sure. Yeah, you're a part of that.
Yeah.
So on the technology front, I mean, the baseball business is a lot more technologically rich than probably what most people realize, whether that's from tickets to cameras to boards to whatever. Can you give us a little under the cover look of some of the cool technology that you guys are using? And then also, can you talk about anything that is maybe kind of future oriented in your world in the technology front?
Yep. So obviously, just operating the ballpark in and of itself, we have lots of different technologies that we're using, from ticketing technologies to how we're transacting sales and business. But some of the things on the baseball side, so we use a technology called TrackMan, and that allows us to capture all sorts of data on our players, things that you're probably used to seeing from watching Major League games, like the spin rates and very accurate velocity, so the velo, and that's going to our scoreboard. Carry distance and exit velocities. And so basically we have a camera system that's set up at the ballpark, but this is all just feeding to an iPad. And we're capturing all of that data because the baseball operations interns that we have, part of their job is to put together basically analytics on all of the players. And then we use that to market the players to the MLB team. So there's a lot of teams that aren't sending in-person scouts anymore. There are teams that do. We had a Yankee scout there all weekend last weekend. But those marketing, like sometimes a team will call you, they have an opening or an injury happen in their affiliated minor league system, and they need to fill a spot. And they're looking for an arm. They're looking for something to fill a spot. And so we'll put together a package of, here's something on 4 players that have been performing well, and we'll send their data out, and then sometimes a player will get signed just off that. And then another thing that's brand new is something called DVS X-ray. So we use a proprietary throwing system called Delivery Value System that was developed by a guy that used to head up our baseball operations named Justin Orendorff. And Justin was a Dodgers #1 draft pick the same year that Justin Verlander was picked by the Tigers. He was the Dodgers #1 pick, and he ended up blowing his arm out and tried to come back, and he never could. And at that time, I think the surgeries weren't as successful as they are with repair. And so he went through a lot of going from here to here and trying to figure out, why did this happen to me?
Sure.
So he ended up developing over time this system called Delivery Value System. And one of the things that it does is it does predict injury risk, but it really does an assessment of how the pitcher is using their body, their throwing motion and their mechanics, their core, their legs, everything, and where the stress is happening to certain parts of their arm, their elbow, their shoulder. And so we're actually changing the mechanics of all the pitchers that pitch in our league follow this delivery value system. So we're working with them to change their mechanics to make them less injury prone, and also using different parts of their body. Most of them, their velocity goes up.
Wow.
So, anywhere from 2 to 4 miles an hour is what we usually will see over time. And so we've had a lot of success with it. And the new thing with DVS is now there's a technology that's called DVS X-ray. And the X-ray system is, we used to do this by using a camera, and we would have our team that was experienced with DVS has to score it manually by looking at the video. Well, now with DVS X-ray, it's all captured by the cameras, and the score happens automatically. So you get a score that tells you, how your mechanics are and where we need to make improvements. So that's really cutting edge technology. Literally, we just got the cameras calibrated to, it was working on pitchers that were not throwing as hard as our pitchers. So going through spring training this year, we had to upgrade everything to be able to go from little league kids all the way up to somebody throwing 95 miles an hour.
Wow.
So that's a really cool technology. We actually invested in delivery value system. The league did. So we have an ownership stake in this technology. And so I think that's probably one of the most cutting edge things we're doing. And we're known. We've had position players and pitchers signed, but the vast majority have been pitchers. So we're really known around baseball as a league to maybe look for arms, because we've had lots of success with pitchers.
Great. And investing in that technology on top of it all is, I mean, what a great other value stream for you and also for the players. I mean, a player who has the choice to come to another independent league or to come to your league, if they've got the technology behind it with you guys, obviously it makes it more compelling to come your way.
Well, that's our argument, is two players, is that we, unlike other leagues where you've got, 12 teams and 12 different owners and everybody has their own philosophy, our coaching staff, even though they're coaching, like you might be managing a different team, there's 4 different managers and 4 different coaching staffs, they're all under contract to the league and we follow one philosophy. So all of the pitchers follow DVS with throwing. All of the hitters follow the same hitting instruction. So there's consistency throughout the league in what we're trying to do, which you don't get with other independent leagues. So I do think it's a big advantage, and I do think there's a huge value to it. Now, there's still sometimes a disconnect from guys are doing sometimes really well with the USPBL following DVS, and they get signed, and then they might go to an affiliated team where the pitching coach doesn't believe in that and tries to change their mechanics, and you're going to battle that all the time. The more we can get DVS and the DVS X-ray system to become more and more mainstream, we're hoping that happens less, because one of the big things is, all of the Tommy John surgeries and the injury risk. We really believe that this dramatically helps to reduce that injury risk by changing the mechanics and having less stress put on the shoulder and the elbow.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, I think we have covered pretty much all of the BLTnT here. The transformation piece obviously has been an undercurrent from your whole career, from changing from where you live to what you did for a living to coming here, and all the different things that you've done with Andy have been just phenomenal. And then all of the different risks that you've attempted together in different business ventures and feasts and failures and whatnot, really just ring true here. So what questions might you have for me, or what else might you like to share?
Well, one thing that I did want to share, we didn't talk about this, but I did talk about it at the event that you saw me speak at, was the risk of somebody in the crowd asked me, about risks. And when I left Chicago, I took a huge pay cut, to come and work in sports. And one of the things that I talked about is try to find something that you love to do. And that, I knew that just becoming a partner in a law firm and making that money was not going to make me happy. It wasn't, I didn't love doing it. And so I was willing to make less money to do something that I was happy doing and that I really wanted to spend my life doing. And so I think that, then that doesn't make the risk was I really taking that big a risk? If it didn't work out, I could always go back to fall back. I already spent my time, paid my penance, going to law school, and going through that to be able to take this chance.
Sure.
And I knew I could go back to a law firm if I really wanted to, but I didn't want to do it. And so the risk was, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to be really disappointed, because I know I want to work in sports.
Sure.
Right? So
I think you'd have been more disappointed had you not taken the risk and not tried what it was that you felt your passion was.
Right. I mean, I guess, from your perspective, what kind of risks do you feel like you've taken with your business?
every day waking up feels like I'm taking some sort of risk. I mean, we're managing the cybersecurity for 150 different sites. So right there, just waking up in the morning, we're already accepting quite a level of risk. Also, just how we've decided to purposefully build the business and make it so that the vision of our business is to build something that outlives the founders. Okay, and so it's a destination company for both employees and for clients. And so my job's not done until that's done, until we really are firmly sitting there. So I know that I have to build something bigger than myself, and I can't do that by myself. I have to do it with a team, and so there's some inherent risk there. But I don't think I would feel like I was doing the right thing in the world if I wasn't out there taking some risks.
Well, I think it's clear that you've built a great business here, and I think it's fantastic that you do the podcast and try to share experiences from other industries and how are people using technology in their businesses, because it has transformed our business, and there's a lot of things we didn't even talk about, from like
I have a whole list
what
here
we
of all
started doing marketing wise to we used to not text messaging marketing was not a thing when we started this league. Things that we're doing today that we to try to reach people, because everything's so segmented now.
Sure.
But maybe for another day.
Maybe for another day, but yeah, I mean, I hope that this is valuable to you, that we've done this together, and I hope it's valuable to everyone watching, who's getting a chance to know you, at the level that I get to know you at.
Well, it's been my pleasure.
Okay, likewise. Thanks, Dana.